Wilson. I'm a junior. My parents gave me an initial when I went in the service. I had to have a name, so I take my dad's as a junior.
Where were you born?
Right here on this place, ranch.
So you were born at home?
At home.
Was
Old Dr. E.P. Sheldon delivered me. He was the old family doctor around here. May the 19th, 1925. My grandpa moved from Rockwell, Caldwell County in 1900 and moved to this ranch where we're living right today. That was 1900. It was just old hard knocks from the word go. As far as other stories, I haven't got too much knowledge of all my background, but I do know that my grandpa Ragland came from Junction in this area, and my grandpa Wilson came from Caldwell County to this area, and they settled here for all these years. I got a sister 8 years younger, but I was the only boy and one girl to the family.
so she was now. Is she still living?
She's living just across the fence up here.
Okay.
She's on. We divided this place when my father passed away. We divided this place right down the middle. She lives on one side and I live on the other. But my dad, every day I think of him and about things that he done. He taught me lots of things. He wrote and played with me just like a kid, just like I did, you know.
Yeah.
And he was in the World War One,
Oh.
and he was wounded and shell shot, and at times his nerves just go all to pieces, you know. But when he felt good, he'd get out and play with me, rope goats, rope calves, just
Yeah.
and
So he was a rancher.
he was a rancher and farmer. He used to farm all this country here used to be in cotton, and also at Driftwood there was cotton gin in Driftwood and one Dripping Springs, and back in the late 30s it was goat country. Instead of cotton they went to goats, but they've always had a bunch of cattle, raised cattle in this area for years and years. He just had a small herd that he sheared and sold them over here.
Yeah.
Will Crow had a warehouse in Dripping Springs, and he bought all the mohair around in this area.
And that was a pretty big deal.
It was a good big deal at that time, back in the 30s and late 30s and early 40s. But now then, goats got to where they wasn't worth nothing. You see very few goats left in the country. The goats that's here now are mostly Spanish goats, or Boer goats. I was in World War II, and my cousin and I, Denton Ragland, went to San Marcos, taking the NYA welding course to go to work at the Houston shipyards. We passed there, got our certificate, had to report to Houston to go to work. And that night we went back, I got a room, was laying there, and I couldn't sleep. I shook him, I called him Hootus. I said, Hootus? And he said, what do you want? What do you want? I said, I don't know about you, but when that sun goes down tomorrow evening, I'm gonna be back in them cedar breaks. So we caught the train and came back and volunteered for the Navy. And went to San Antonio, passed their examination and all, and the old Marine sergeant walked in there and lined us up there. There's about right at 20 recruits. He walked down there, you, and you, fall out and fall in. You are now a Marine.
Now, what year was that?
1943.
Now,
And I was in there 27 months. I never had a day's leave from the time I went in to the time I came back. Across the creek over here was the old McNair place, Neil McNair, and they raised 6 boys, and I grew up with them. And we'd always meet here on the creek, swimming hole, and go swimming and fishing. Back then, you could go down into Onion Creek, catch fish anytime you wanted to. But now then, it's dry and there's no fish whatsoever. I was riding a horse. I got some pictures in there. Before I was still wearing diapers, I was riding horses. I was raised on a horse. My dad and sisters went to school over here off of 12 there on Gatlin, which was Glen School. And they had to walk all the way across over there. Well, I don't remember just what year, but my grandpa gave the land for the Darton Hill School to be built on. And I started school when I was 5 years old. And when I was in the sixth grade, they had to tear the school building down to get me out. And I went to Dripping, started going to Dripping Springs. Math was my favorite subject, and I still like that math. And in 42, I was forced to take short. Everybody'd gone in the service. I was the only boy and about 12 or 13 girls. And superintendent forced me to take shorthand. And you can imagine what shorthand would do for me. And so I had 2 or 3 rounds with him, and I walked out about 6 weeks before I graduated. I went back later and got my diploma, you know. We had played baseball, and this small school, we never did have football, but when I moved to Dripping Springs, we had a 6-man football team. And the first year we played, we won the state. Went to San Angelo to play Van Horn for the finals, and they beat us by 1 point. But I never will forget that trip to San Angelo. We stayed at Cactus Hotel, and that was plumb out of the country for me. That was the first trip I ever had leaving away from Dripping Springs.
Yeah, that's a pretty long trip to see.
It was.
Did you go on a bus?
We went on a bus. No, went in a station wagon.
Oh.
And G.C. Herring was the coach and all, and he had a station wagon, and we all crowded in there. And it was early 30s. Dad bought a 29 Ford, and Riverside Drive and Lamar Boulevard, where they crossed, there was a Gulf station there, and that was plumb out of Austin. And this car dealer, the deal was that it would take him out of town. He'd and turn it over to him, and I can remember he'd taken a 1, 2, 3 on the floorboard and an R where the gears were. But he didn't tell him to push the clutch in and change them gears. But I can remember that just as well. Old 29 Model A Ford.
Oh, well, that's a classic car.
That was. I mean, it was up. And then up there where the battery, when the battery was dead on it, we'd push it out of the garage. And I had an old dun horse there that I'd get on and pull it to a little old ledge. It would run downhill. And you never will forget, Dad pulled up to the station. He never would put over 50 cents worth of gas in his automobile. I don't care. He never did make any long trips or anything like that. But when he put gas, 50 cents for all the gas he would buy at a time. There used to be a tent. Come in and set up right where the theater is there now in Dripping Springs, where the bank is. There wasn't no bank there at that time, but a tent would come in there and set up and show pictures of Tom Mix and Roy Rogers and all this. But
The cowboy show.
Cowboy show, all Western shows. Back on the radio in this country, John McIntyre had it back off down a neighbor down there. Every Saturday night, we'd go down there and pop up a bunch of popcorn, listen to the Grand Ole Opera. And just about the time it really got interesting, the battery would go down, because back then all they had was an old wind charger to keep that battery up. And before the program was over, that damn radio would go dead.
Oh, no.
I mean, I first started roping calves in 1947. Edward Gage and Glenn Rippey kept going to Austin. Old man Tom Carson had a rodeo arena down there, and the rope where they had the calf roping and all. They'd come back. I said, what did y'all do any good? No, no. I said, why do you keep going down there? He said, well, we could just go down there and see that blonde-headed secretary. And I said, well, maybe I better go down there and check her out. And she was my first wife.
And what was her name?
Doris. She was a Carson, Doris Carson. And we was married, raised 3 girls. And she passed away in 83 of it. And then I met, well, I've known Judy for a long time. We married. She's been my standby ever since. My oldest daughter, Janie, she's got 3 state records at Haddocksville. She's the first girl to rope all 3 calves. She had the fastest calf rope. And she was the first year they had pole business, she won the pole business down there. I roped calves and then team roping. Mr. Ed Lears and I roped team ropes together, and then we were pickup men, taking these riders off these broncs and all. Oh, I traveled quite a bit, but I was working, and in fact, the business, I had a card, an RCA card, and Jigger Alexander and I made 10 shows. He placed it 9 out of 10, and I placed it 8 out of 10 on the old sorrel horse that I broke and trained, you know. And we was roping, went to Huntsville, the prison rodeo down there, and he roped the calf. The old calf kicked it loose from him. He walked out of the arena with a tied to my old horse. And that was the last time he rode that horse. And then Ed and I, we picked up broncs, we roped steer, team roping and all.
So that was quite a life, huh?
Oh yeah, I enjoyed it. It was a lot of sport to it. We had lots of match ropings around there. The winner would always keep winning, and the loser would pick a man to run at him. And I won match calf roping, one right after the other. And then Ed Lears and I, we roped team rope steers. And one roped the head, and the other roped the heels, get off the high square knot around both back legs. And then we picked up broncs at these rodeos. Clear the arena, rope bulls that didn't want to come out, would rope them and drag them out. And 2005, I was inducted to the Texas Rodeo Cowboy Hall of Fame. And that's, I'm really pleased to see that award, because most everyone, if the good Lord let me live to see my name up there, most everyone is put up there after they passed away. I retired, I rode from 47 in 1985. I won the all-around at George West. That's when I quit road. My last buckle was 1985. Cattle raisers. All right. When they started this brand inspection, these auction sales, that was 1947. They passed a law that the record had to be kept of every animal that comes in on the yard there to be sold. I told him I was there to check the cattle and all. And he said, well, I don't think we need an inspector up here. And I said, well, didn't you get a letter that there would be a man here work your sale? He said, yeah, but I really don't think we need him. And I said, well, I'm sorry, but I'm here to check the cattle. We're going to try to get along if we can, but I'm going to be here regardless. Well, I worked on there quite a while. My working conditions were pretty bad. And came by there one Friday afternoon. He had a bunch of South Texas cattle in there. They broke out. There's them peanut fields around up there. And I went to him. I said, now, if you got an extra horse, I'll be glad to help you catch these cattle and put them back in the pen. And he did. And I broke several cows, helped him drag him in there. Well, I never did have any problems thereafter working there. I was welcome as could be. And I went to work in December of 67. 66, I believe it was, or 67. Don C. King, he was Secretary and General Manager of the Cavalry Association, and I carried the Special Texas Ranger Commission for 28 years. And my retirement was 1990, and Don and Billy, his wife, came by and sat up at the supper table. I said, Don, I'm sure looking forward to my retirement. Oh, wasn't a word said. And a week or two, I called the Fort Worth office and talked to him about a little matter. Pretty important to me, but he didn't even want to talk about it. He said, why don't you just stay in and go out when I do? So I need some more time out of you. So I give him 5 years of my retirement. I retired in 95. He went out in 95, and that's when I went out.
Now, was this the part that was the
Cattle raiders,
cattle raiders?
Texas and Southwestern cattle raiders.
Did you guys catch many cattle rustlers?
Sure did.
So tell me a little bit about that. What you?
We had 2 colored boys went down there at Litton Springs, stole some cattle. They loaded them. Where they loaded them, one of them had lost his check, the council checks there in the pen where they loaded the cattle. So we knew who we were looking for. And we had to find the cattle before we could make a case on them. Well, I guess I'd worked on it all 3 or 4 months. Run checks. See, they keep a record of cattle that's sold, send to the Fort Worth office, put on a computer and all. When I run brand checks and this and that and everything I could think of, never could find them. And Harold Moss came to me one day there at the Lockhart auction. He said, Wilson, he said, did you ever find them cattle that stolen down at Little Springs? I said, Harold, I've done everything in the world. He said, well, I can tell you where you can go find them cattle. He said, I saw Charlie Lee Franks and Floyd Johns coming from Temple on a sale day. He said, I'll bet you if you go to Temple, you can find them cattle. So I went to Temple, sure enough, I found them cattle. And then I went to Phoenix, Arizona, and picked up the prisoners. And I had lots of rest.
Wow.
And fact of business, I was attached to Company F, Texas Rangers. And anytime the Rangers needed help, I was called in. But what the problem is today, very few ranchers, unless they're sure enough big ranchers, brand the cattle. And if that animal don't have a brand on it, you can't identify it, well, you can't make a case. You've got to have that animal and be identified before you can make a case of it.
Why don't they brand their cattle?
Too much trouble. I've got my cattle branded. I mean, I think that brand just as important as the license plate on your automobile. Shearing goats, I want to tell you, Buster Barmarine, Glenn Rippey, Buster had the machine. He was getting 8 cents a head, shear goat. Well, he was paying Glenn and I 5 cents a head. He was getting 3 off the top for the rig and all the equipment and everything. And we were shearing over Mr. Lee Berkeley's. That's over on McGregor Lane, and you may back up there. And a little below shed, and Ms. Berkeley, Ms. Framey, fixed a bunch of fried chicken and cold iced tea and all. We eat a big bait. Went back out there and started shearing. And one of them old pet goats bit old Glenn on the side. He jumped up, cussed it and stomped it, turned it loose, half sheared. And went out there and sat down on a wool sack. Well, Buster and I was gonna have to double up that afternoon to finish up. Well, about 4 o'clock that afternoon, I got to thinking about how smart he was. I cut my header out, went out there and joined him. But I was getting 5 cents a head, and I just worked my tail off to get up. My goal was to shear 100 head a day, and that's one of the hardest jobs I guess I ever had. the Blanco Bank was robbed.
Now, when was this?
Oh, it was back in the 40s. And the old boy robbed the bank, pulled in here Dripping Springs. He knew Reed Hollingsworth and his family. He got in there and tried to get Reed to take him to Austin. And Reed wouldn't do it. So he gets out on the road and goes up there, across the road from the old tinny place, and gets in the brush. And so my aunt lived over there on, and had to come out this gate. And her mother lived right down the road. She'd go down and do her washing. Well, Howard Tatum was the bank robber. He gets up, starts over there to open the gate. Well, it scared him. So she turns around, goes back, and gets Bonko, Tommy. They come back there, and Tommy gets out, open the gate, and they go on down there. But he goes down and gets Deputy Sheriff. Will King was Deputy Sheriff. And he said, there's an old tramp up there. I said, I wish you'd go up there and move him. So my wife gets alarmed, trying to go in and out the gate. Well, James Farrell and Tommy Turner were mechanics there at the Central Garage and all. And Will King's son-in-law run the garage. Well, they go up there to get him out of remove him. And heck, Will recognized him. He knew him. And so he told him, he asked him what he's doing. He said, well, he's just hitchhiking to Austin. He said, well, come on down. So I'll haul you down there and you can catch a bus. And so he goes down there and holds the wire up for him, crawl through. And when he crawls through, he comes up and jerks his gun out, puts him in the car, and points at Tommy Turner and James Farrell. He said, now you just lay right there and don't you move. And they got it scared old Tommy so bad he couldn't move. But anyway, he got to poking him side, drive faster, and Will told him, he said, Howard, he said, drive any faster, I'll wreck this thing. He said, stop and let me out. Well, by then, all the alarm had been out, you know, that it was looking for him everywhere. And Will caught a ride and come on back into the station there. And Howard taken his car, and they had a shootout down there on Palm School there in Austin and captured him. But that was one of the biggest events around back to this part of the country about that time. No, I built this house. I built this house from, I can't remember just exactly the year, but 84 is when I moved up here. And built this house. So I lived in Buda, 28 years there on Route 4. I bought the place from Mr. Luther Turner. And after my wife passed away, well, I always wanted a place right here where I've got this house. And so I built this house in 84.
It's a really nice place.
Well, thank you, ma'am. But it's
heaven
to me. You know, I wouldn't bother.
Yeah.
I've been offered just a lot more money than what it ever would be worth. But as long as I'm living, when I leave this place, it'll be a little bonbon. I can get on this four-wheel. I've got a little bunch of cattle, got a little bunch of goats, I've got a bunch of wild deer that I call and talk to, and they'll follow me around. And these old goats, I can call them, get on that four-wheeler and take them anywhere, and they'll come up, eat out of my hands and all. The old cow will do the same thing. And if I get kind of depressed or something, I'll get on my four-wheeler and I go down there and talk to these old cows. They talk back to me.
It sounds pretty good.
And it's just nice living here, that's all.